I'm Ken Beasley. I'm a professional forester and an arborist, and today we were doing winter tree identification walks at the U Mountain Center and covering the basics of identifying trees and woody plants in winter with no leaves. Flowering parts, and this time of year we have no flowers to identify trees. So basically we have gymnosperms, evergreens. The gymnosperms, they've got if you've seen a pine cone, they've got a naked seed. That's basically a naked seed. So that's one whole half of the tree world. The other half is angiosperms, which means they have a fruit that's enclosed inside an ovary like an acorn. So we have gymnosperms, angiosperms. That's not going to help us a lot right now because we want to learn how to identify trees. Around here we have a lot of deciduous trees, and we could walk down this way. I was going to walk down the driveway and then up this trail over here and see how far we get. I think Will's going to come tap on my shoulder if we run over, but we can take a stroll down here first and get in some trees and go from there. If there's a lot of competition, but sometimes there are main characteristics that the trees keep throughout the year. The other one are buds and twigs. See if I can find a good tree, but you know, all trees have limbs and branches, and they all have buds, and the buds are where the leaves originate from. So these buds swell up in the spring, you get leaves out of them. But this time of year, the buds are one of our best identifiers on the trees because they're always the same. And it doesn't matter if, oh, this little guy here, this is a little tree. So the bud on this tree is going to be exactly the same. Of course, I don't see another big tree. If this was the same tree towards the end, they're going to be exactly the same.
What kind of tree is that? Shaggier one and then the one you first pointed to?
Okay.
I missed that.
Well, so when we're identifying trees just by this, we have two main components when we look at twigs and leaf arrangement. We have alternate arrangement and opposite arrangement. So some trees, they go up the stem and they've got little buds, and you guys can come and look at these if you want. Of course the trees don't bite, but there's little buds that go down the stem, and sometimes they alternate. You know, there's one on this side of the stem, there's one on this side of the stem, there's one on this side of the stem. So that's alternate. That's the one main arrangement that we'll see. The other is opposite. So sometimes we have trees, here's your stem, and there's a leaf and a bud that come opposite of each other. Go down the stem, they're opposite of each other. Come down the stem. So we have alternate, zigzagging down the tree, and alternate straight across. Occasionally we'll have whorled, where they'll go all the way around the stem. We don't have too many of those around here. So these long buds, they have a long pointy bud. It looks like a little cigar. And the way I remember that is sometimes if you're on vacation, some people like to have a cigar on the beach. So a long pointy bud looks like a cigar, and it's alternate.
It looks like a cigar.
Tree. Beach, it's pretty common. You can keep walking out here. There's another beech tree. We got a green stem, long pointy bud in the wintertime is the best way to identify these. We've only got one other tree that has a bud that resembles this. The bud's about half as long. It also has tight gray bark, but it's called a musclewood. And it actually looks like tendons on an arm. It'll have ripples like a muscle in it. But these buds, they've got a deer hoof bud basically. It's a valvate bud, so you've got two pieces of bud that come up like this, and it's soft. But can anybody tell me what the leaf arrangement is on it, or the bud arrangement if you look at it? Alternate. You can see it stepping down the stem. There's not one on each side. Because when we get to maples, that's the key factor this time of year. Are they alternate or opposite? Because folks that want to put in a sugar bush need to know what maple trees are. If they want to do birch trees, they can have birch or walnut, but best bang for your buck are maple trees. Specifically, which maple? Sugar maple. So we'll go look at how to differentiate sugar maple bud from a red maple bud. Because at certain stages in the life of the tree, the bark is somewhat similar when they're younger. And a lot of these trees are similar in age. The bark kind of looks the same on them because we won't want to tap a red oak tree.
A lot of trees, huh?
It has a valvate bud, so this one is an oddball for our maples, just because it doesn't have bud scales. It's smooth. If you look at these buds, they're smooth. They're nice and smooth. They don't have any scales on the bud. Greenish stem. These can grow fairly fast and take over places that you'd rather have other trees going. Some foresters, you know, you don't want a lot of beech in the understory because they're shading the competition. You know, maybe want oaks or maples to grow. Alternate. Yep, stepping down. This tree has these little horizontal lenticels around here. This is a black birch, and black cherry are the only hardwood trees that have real noticeable lenticels. You see these little lines? They provide gas exchange for the tree. But with age, this tree starts off real smooth and young. Here's a black birch. Little difference in the bark compared to the big one. It's smoother with age. It'll become more furrowed. Yeah, they do.
This is mine. There's also a lot of different types of moss. Like there's like
Yeah, well, you can kind of look at the laterals. That's opposite, but mainly you want to look at these buds. They're close together, but right there, if you look there, one on one side, one on the other.
So it's the bud arrangement. It's not necessarily the stem arrangement.
Correct. Yeah, you can't go by the stem all the time. Yeah, you mainly want to look at these little buds. So this is opposite.
You have to look pretty closely.
And then if you look, this year's growth, what color? It's kind of chestnut brown. So, I mean, what color is our maple syrup when we boil it down? It gets kind of chestnut brown.
Right.
So this is a sugar maple. And I always think of sugar maple, if you look at it, it's got a terminal bud, it's got two auxiliary buds, and to me it looks like a little starfighter from Star Wars.
Yeah, it does.
It's kind of pointy.
That's probably where they got the idea for that shape.
Yeah, it is. But this is an alternate tree. And it's got deep furrowed bark. It's pretty uniform all the way around it. It's the yellow poplar. It looks a little red if you look up top. At the end of the twig, if you follow the tree up, go all the way up to the end, you won't see that red on a sugar maple. The big twigs are fairly stout. They're not real skinny.
The buds look definitely bigger.
Yeah, there should be, especially those terminal buds and a few of those laterals, kind of bulbous. Bark gets really hard to teach. Sometimes it's just, you know, you have to learn it. This is the same as the big tree with the trail signs on it. Black birch. Kind of got smooth bark. There's a more mature black birch. See your lenticels? Horizontal
This one
lenticels.
too with the signs.
Sure, I mean the bark is kind of curl both ways. They curl this way. They'll flake up a lot. They'll curl down. It's got ridges and furrows. It gets real flaky with age. The bark. You may see some red tins. Like from down here, if you look up top, you can see those swollen red buds way up top at the ends of the twigs. You follow the twig out, and you just see a little round. We don't see any small trees of a lot of species as deer browse. They love little new year or 2 year old growth off a lot of hardwood trees. And we have a lot of deer in places, and they're eating up all the baby trees.
Is it blackbird?
Nope. Shouldn't be opposite. Yep, it's got smoother bark, but right here's a little bud.
Is Is it?
Right here's a better one.
Is it the striped maple?
Nope. Striped maple was opposite.
Pretty flowers.
Beach. Well, we're back to alternate, so that's good. It's got fairly stout twigs.
I know what it is.
You can
Pretty
barely see the black buds at the end. It's got a darker, dark gray
Is it a poplar?
poplar. Yeah, they're pretty
Yellow
popular.
poplar? It's a yellow poplar.
Yeah, it is yellow poplar. So yellow
But
poplar.
it's not a poplar.
It's not a
It's
poplar.
not a poplar. It's a magnolia.
The reddish stem, it had a real smooth bud. So this has got a valvate bud. It's just two close together. It's real smooth. It looks like a duckbill. If you come look at it, it looks like a duckbill. The leaf kind of looks like a big goose foot or something. But this is yellow poplar.
This one has more branches coming out than that one. I don't know if that's normal.
It does.
So you did label.
And that could be, you know, this road was opened up years ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
the trees on the roadside, they're going to, these epicormic
Yeah.
buds are going to pop, go to sunlight.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see now.
That's what they used to make brooms out of. Because it's real soft, I mean it's real light, durable, flexible. So that's what they made the whisk off the brooms with.
Other than the bark, difference between a pig nut and shag bark.
So another name for the pig nut hickory is the false shag bark.
That's what?
The false shag bark. Because pig nuts with age will get exfoliating bark. So this is, a hickory is alternate, has alternate buds. That's dead.
Some of those chips, yeah, they have big old bud on them.
Yeah, man, I would still call
What was
that
the other name you said?
broom hickory. So these hickories, we've got 7 species of hickories in West Virginia, and 5 or 6 of them are pretty common. There's a red hickory that is really similar to a pig nut hickory, but basically they are alternate. And they have real big leaf scars underneath these lateral buds. So the leaf scar is where the leaf's here, and you have a petiole, a little stem that connects it to the twig like this. And when that leaf falls off, every tree leaves a leaf scar. And these are usually pretty pronounced, heart-shaped sometimes, kind of oval. And that's another good way to identify trees if you can see the buds. It's an opposite. And
The red too.
is it red? Black buds.
Is this a?
It's got chestnut brown stem, new growth.
Is it a sugar maple?
Sugar maple. That's right.
Okay, I was looking for the buds.
We're getting right. But these are a group of sassafras trees.
Sassafras.
All the ones with the similar grayish bark. They got green growth, even past last year. Look at these, they're nice and green. Nice green. Should be able to smell it. You can pass it around. Yeah. So some people harvest the younger trees for the roots, make sassafras tea. I'm sure Will, his beehives are right over here. The bees love sassafras flowers. Here's one, as you go up the tree, they're stacked 90 degrees. And that's a common characteristic of black gum. It's nice, they're almost perpendicular with the ground. It's an alternate tree. Buds are alternate. It's got a real pretty bud on it.
There's several kinds.
Of course, they're all dead.
What kind were those?
Black gum.
Different than sourwood. I don't know any basswood. Sourwood.
Got another one. It's a card too, but it's as opposite.
Okay.
And the buds,
Yeah, the red.
yeah,
That are
they got some
red
here.
maple?
Red maple.
Okay.
There you go.
Maple, tapping, collection, cooking, making syrup.
Why do you think we're here?
I know to open
I
the
don't
bottle.
know. I thought you guys were going to teach me. I thought that's why you came. No?
Well, you need one of those drills, I think.
Okay. All right. What else you got?
Hammer? I don't know, just a guess.
What else you got?
Maybe a tap. I'm not sure.
Maybe a jar.
See, you guys know what you're doing already. You don't even need me. I'm going home.
A bucket to hang there to catch it.
So this is typically, so we are mostly an educational maple. That's our maple project is educational mostly. We used to sell all of our sap to a local producer, but he expanded his maple operations elsewhere, and it's a lot of fuel to come collect sap every day. You know, sap will sour really quick, within a day, especially when the temperatures get up in the mid 50s, especially 60s. If you don't cook that sap down that day, it's spoiled, it's done. The bacteria will start to grow in it. So maple, you know, it's a really full-on heavy job. So that's why we haven't tapped, we haven't collected yet this season. We'll tap some trees and we'll cook down some just kind of for our caretakers or for our shop here, but we don't have all the equipment to cook down a ton of sap. It really requires a pretty large boiling system, evaporator. A pretty heavy duty reverse osmosis is pretty important for that too. And we just don't really have those things here. So our main goal is to teach people education to instruct on tapping and maple syrup. So that's what we'll do today. Feel free to ask questions. Unfortunately, I can't show you a evaporator steaming off sap, which is kind of the most exciting part, smelling it. But if you come back on the 17th, we might get the evaporator going, and that's our Maple Days event, our bigger event. 4 lines. This is a 3/16 inch line, which is kind of interesting because the size and gravity, you get a little minor vacuum effect that actually pulls extra sap out of the trees. So a lot of people use that. In big commercial operations, they'll actually have vacuum pumps that is vacuuming, sucking out of the trees. Unless, you know, they utilize this size line, whatever the dynamics are, the physics, I'm not able to talk on that, but it does create a vacuum effect when you're dropping so many feet through that line.
So like if you tap 2 trees, for example, you might get 1 gallon of maple syrup towards the end of it.
Rough estimates are a quart of cooked down syrup per tap. We walked through all this, so you guys really got to see it. If you notice, all these lateral lines go kind of all the way up through this little area. Total like 170 trees. Again, we were tapped all this to supply a local producer that is no longer collecting it, so pretty small scale just for our own educational endeavors here. But you can see this system got put in about 3 years ago. And we can tell that because you have these 3 dots. And that's not an art project. It's not like an alien thing. This is 3 different tappings. So year 1, year 2, year 3. Again, year 1, year 2, year 3. Like Ken said, there's like a specific way to tap trees. Ken probably, again, he's more of an expert in trees than I am, but from my understanding, whenever you put a tap here, there is a scar that forms that is kind of like a diamond shape. Is that right, Ken?
Yep.
That's what I've been told. And so you have this diamond shaped scar there. And so the next year, if you're planning on continuing to tap the same tree year after year after year after year, you don't want to just drill back in there because that scar is there and you won't get sap out of it, from my understanding. So what I've been told is you move 2-3 inches to the left or right, and then up 6 to 8 inches, up or down. And so you avoid this diamond shaped scar. So you're not tapping into scar tissue. And then you work your way around the whole tree, and by the time you get back to here, that tree has grown out so that cambium layer is beyond that scar tissue. Does that sound right?
Yeah, you could think of it as every year that a tree grows, think of your first year as a traffic cone. And then the next year, that new layer, put another traffic cone over top of it, so you have another layer outside. Then you put another cone on, and that's how the tree grows up. Just think of, so you're just coming around the tree and getting in your, you know, that traffic cone's building up another layer to tap into.
And so we'll go, so again, year 1, 2, 3, this was the last year, so I'll go over 2 inches and up about 6. Now, as far as angle goes, you can, you don't want to go too low. You can have a little bit of slope, but you also don't want it going down in the tree. Horizontal is kind of ideal. Sometimes it's hard to see when you're below, but you also do your best, and it should flow out pretty good. So we'll just tap it right now. And I like to come out and get that wood out. So you already see that wood was wet. See, you see it dripping?
Yep. Oh yeah. Open your mouth and
So now and you can see it going in pretty easy. You see that? Bouncing off, and you're done. Operation, I'm not sure how much he makes a year. What were you saying?
Birch.
Really?
Yeah, black
You're-
birch.
It's one of the first that were ever tapped by
Yeah.
Native Americans. But your yield is way worse with both birch and
That's
pectin,
like
too.
pectin issues.
Oh,
So there's a lot of filtration and stuff.
They do some hickory trees down south. There's hickory syrup.
Hickory syrup is just boiled bark and,
Oh, is it?
and cane sugar, I think.
Yeah, I think
My name is Wes White. I'll be talking about coppicing and pollarding today, sustainable forestry practice for small diameter fuels and resources. Sorry, we're going to be short on time. I had a lot more to say than I'm going to. Maybe another time I can do this and talk more at length. I'm going to be talking just really very briefly about coppicing, or pollarding is another term for it. Literally the difference between coppicing and pollarding is the height at which you cut it off. Pollarding is traditionally used when you have mixed agroforestry, where you have livestock in and around the resource that you're trying to cut, so that the livestock can't reach the new growth, the shoots. It was also heavily used on Osage orange throughout Oklahoma and Texas circa post-Dust Bowl to create fencing and erosion barriers, with Osage orange in particular is one species that handles it really well.
coppicing or pollarding?
Pollarding would have been used at that point
That's a
because
higher cut?
yeah, higher cut. So the history of coppicing and pollarding, I have a very Western slant because I went to a forestry school that was heavily influenced through Western thought, Western experience of forestry. But it is not limited to European ancestry at all. Erica Marks introduced me to the fact that in Japan, they actually what they do, they call it coppicing, but truly it's actually pollarding. They primarily focused on cypress to grow long poles for building structures. And so they focus on, because it was a resource scarcity. And so that's the history that I know of coppicing. It comes from Gifford Pinchot, who was the founder of the U.S. Forest Service, founder of the Yale Forestry School, the oldest forestry school in America. Gifford Pinchot in early America went back and studied forestry in France and Germany because we were annihilating our mid-Atlantic East Coast forests because we were building, all of our means of conveyance were built out of wood. We were heating with wood. Wood was how America was built, and eventually later coal and with steel. But this was cut down at the base at some point in time, and as time went on, it sent up shoots, and it's not growing straight, so that's going to rule out some other species as well. I think this was just being pruned back. This is not intentional. I don't know who did this. Do you know, Will or Adrian?
we can't talk about that.
I think I know who did it. Because some of these cuts are great, other ones not so great. So if you were coppicing or pollarding, you don't want a flat surface. Like, this is terrible, because all you're going to do is encourage rot, and it won't grow. You want anywhere from, depending on what you're cutting and what your end goal is, whether you're looking for fuel or some sort of art product, which I'll talk about willows here shortly, you're going to want to cut at a different angle. So typically it's 20 to 30 degrees when you're cutting for coppicing or pollarding. This is a little steeper. This is at 45. You would want to do this more with a willow, and you'd want to look for a bud at the point, and you'd want to cut right above that bud. Because what that tells you is that that tree will then, or that bush will then flourish out from that point and will grow a whole bunch more. And so here you can see almost the example of, if you can imagine this was the stump 5 years ago, 6 years ago, how it's around it, it is already sending up new growth and new shoots. This one's definitely confusing, but I'm going to assume that it's an alder just based on the color. I've got a lot of autumn olive. That was the other thing that Ken and I thought maybe this was maybe autumn olive, but I don't know. Do you guys know?
I'm just curious as to what the chopping, the reason for chopping, which would indicate maybe they were trying to eradicate an autumn olive. Because there was a volunteer here who has the technique of then putting like
salt?
Some sort of, insect pesticide, something to like put on top.
Well, if it was an alder, it would be ideal because alders are fast growing and they actually have a fair good bit of density, and so the BTUs of the firewood, if you were trying to coppice for firewood purposes, alder is an ideal species to coppice with. In terms of other products that have value, people that are into basket weaving and artistry love to buy willow. Willow fetches a pretty fair price on the open market right now. Another thing that we have that grows around here, you all probably still see the inflorescence sticking up even in the middle of winter. I don't see any around here right now, but a staghorn sumac. You guys all know what that is. You're driving along, it's kind of almost like a maroon pine cone looking. My mother's a retired florist and she used to buy it.
Makes excellent lemonade.
Okay, apparently you can drink it.
Oh yeah.
Most people that I know,
it's really good.
Most people that I know over in Highland County are just trying to eradicate it. They hate it because
it.
What?
Tell them to drink it. Put it in water and drink it. Seriously, it's amazing.
So staghorn sumac would be another great example of a species that you could coppice or pollard to encourage more inflorescence, more growth, and then you would have a product that would be marketable. Any other questions?